Well, thank you very much, and we rely on you just like to improve the traffic in Tel Aviv, because we know that a lot of people are stuck into the traffic. When we are speaking about the revolution in mobility, Uber is definitely a main actor. We are now even calling Uberization when we speak about innovation. And I have to tell you, Jambu, that I'm someone who uses Uber almost every day, and I would say at least Uber maybe 2 or 3 times a day. And I'm going to tell you something before you start, which is for me very important. Uber, you transformed the mobility. But there is one achievement that maybe people don't know here in Israel, is that you succeed where the French education failed. You succeed, and we need to learn how you transform people. People that used to be, the same, that were the same. Sorry, we have a technical problem. When I was saying something nice to you, people that were taxi driver, and then they become Uber, and suddenly they learn how to handle the clients, they learn how to behave, they learn what it is to be the boss. And you are doing an amazing job in France. So thank you very much, because I really think this is very helpful. And now it's the floor for you. I just want to say that you are the regional manager for Eastern Europe, Middle East, Africa for Uber. And now, please come here. Thank you very much, and I would like a great welcome to Jambu.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. It's really a privilege to be here in Tel Aviv and spend a bit of time with you. As Valerie said, I have the pleasure of looking after the Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa business for Uber. It is, I think, one of our most dynamic, fast-growing, and also challenging environments. And we'll talk a little bit about who we are, our story, and sort of our vision for the future of mobility, which I think ties in nicely to both what was said previously, but also I think the discussion that we'll have, in a moment. Uber is built on today's technology, and if our company was, 10 years older, it probably wouldn't have existed. It's a mobile-only application. And the idea behind it is simple. Push a button on your phone and a car comes to you. That product, quite frankly, works a little bit different in Israel than it does in many of our other markets. Here, if you do that, you actually get a taxi, which will show up, and we'll talk about why and what that is. In many other markets, we've shifted to different models. One, if you use Uber in London or New York, for example, is a private hire vehicle. So a vehicle that's sole purpose is to drive people from point A to point B. It isn't a taxi, it's an entirely separate sort of product. And in many cities in the US, we've even shifted to a model where individuals can drive their own personal cars on the Uber platform, thereby increasing access to transportation and reducing costs comparatively as well. We are a young company, we're about 6 years old, and our story starts with customer pain, ironically, in France. And so we say one rainy night in Paris. There's actually a photo of our co-founders in front of the Eiffel Tower. They were in Paris, and many of you who spend time there know how challenging it can be to find a taxi, particularly in the outskirts of the city or late in the evening. And the idea behind their sort of thought process was, what if you could just push a button on your phone and a car would show up? And so this is how it works, fairly simple. A screen pops up with a map and nearby available cars. You push a button, you're assigned a driver, you get the name of the driver, a photo, a phone number, the reg number of the car, able to communicate with the driver in-app. Once you complete your trip, payments actually completely digital, so there's no exchange of cash. And there's a two-way rating system, which increases accountability. And so you rate the driver on a 5-star scale, and he or she actually rates you back. So also accountability to teach passengers how to behave. One of the things that is incredibly important to us is how do we ensure that the actual experience of the Uber trip is safe and customers have confidence in the process. One of the most important parts is driver pre-screening. And we go through very robust processes in all of the markets in which we operate to ensure that drivers meet a high standard. in many markets, in New York and London, for example, that screening is actually part of a driver licensing scheme that is actually run by the relevant regulatory body. And in addition to that, there is obviously the fact that this is a digital product and there is no anonymity between you and your driver. And so you have the driver information, you have safe pickups, and that's before the trip. During the trip, you can actually share your trip link with a friend or family member, a GPS-enabled map that updates real time, and digital payment. There's also the rating system as well as real-time feedback. So there's always a process of quality control that we go through, as well as being able to track your history in the event of a lost item, and 24/7 support. And if you think about where that is versus maybe where the industry has been historically, that paradigm shift, I think, is actually what led to the point that Valerie raised, which is ultimately there is accountability on both sides of the platform, which leads to a comparatively higher level of service. So this is, where we are today. It's 65 countries, 400 cities around the world, over 5 million journeys per day. But if this looks familiar, this is still what we all deal with, right? It's congestion and traffic. Here in Israel, it's over 1.9 million passenger vehicles, over 20 billion shekels in economic loss as a result of traffic each year, and a 15% increase in private car usage since 1995. Now, there are certainly a lot of ways to approach this challenge. There's building new public infrastructure, which is certainly helpful, and I know has shifted some of the challenges here, but it's expensive, it takes time, it leads to disruptions. There are certainly, alternatives that can be developed. But what if I told you that we could dramatically reduce this problem tomorrow with the existing infrastructure that already exists today? And that's actually something we've started to do in many other countries. And it's based on a very simple premise, which is more people in fewer cars. If you think about a conventional trip or journey, and whether that's a personal trip or an Uber trip, you start in a place, you take a route, and you go to a place. But imagine these were two Uber trips, and the customers started in relatively the same area and ended in relatively the same area. What is actually preventing those two customers, rather than taking two cars and the congestion, pollution, time that comes with that, and instead actually shifting to one car? And so what this is a product we have called Uber Pool. And what it is after the first person is picked up, before they're dropped off, the second passenger is picked up. And that continues and continues and continues. And what that leads to is a matching of trips to aggregate demand, the same or higher efficiency for the drivers, and lower costs for the riders, as well as significant benefits for the cities, which we'll talk through. And so this is a real-time map of San Francisco that actually shows where Uber Pool trips are compared to non-Uber Pool trips are. Let me see if I can get it to work. There you go. So you can see on the left, this is before Uber Pool, and you can see the traffic density is actually significantly higher than after Uber Pool has been sort of rolled out in the environment. The length of the density is shorter, and the concentration of higher number of vehicles actually goes down. In London, in just 6 months, there's been over 1 million Uber Pool trips taken, 700,000 miles saved, and over 100 metric tons of CO2. And that's not just one example, right? In Los Angeles now, 25% of all trips on Uber are in Uber Pool, 4.3 million miles saved, and 750 metric tons of CO2. There are now 3 cities in the US where we are doing 100,000 Uber Pool trips each week. And the impact of this is pretty leveraged, right? Which is a ride-sharing community, and we'll talk about what that means, with just 3,000 drivers can reduce the number of car trips each day by 37,000. So over a 12x increase. Now, what we need, in order for that to be able to take place, is favorable regulation that allows for scale and growth and the most efficient use of resources. And there is firm commitment, from us to work with existing operators, regulators, taxi owners and operators as well, to understand what the future of this, industry looks like. And there have been many things, that folks have approached us with in other markets, including, contribution funds to ease the transition to the digital economy for existing operators in the taxi or transport space. And I think our takeaway is we're open to listening, but we would love an opportunity to engage in a constructive dialogue to go through those issues. I find it particularly ironic and challenging to be in Israel, a country that is known for innovation, technology, and progress, and unfortunately not be able to ensure that the Uber experience here, is at the same level that it is in many other countries. So, I think where I leave it is there is incredible opportunity in a very short amount of time to deliver significant value in the transportation space, to significantly reduce the cost of living in the country, and to dramatically change the transportation landscape in an area which is very low very low in terms of capital investment, and very quick for us to see results. Thank you.